Hello, and welcome. Welcome to everyone who is joining this Career Corner webinar, whether it's live or through the recording. We are so happy to have you here. We're going to give the room a few moments to fill up. So if you want to let us know in the chat where you're joining from, I'd love to know. And, maybe what the weather is like where you are, so we can see where everyone's joining from around the world. My name is Jennifer Bongora, and I'm Nexford's Director of Career Innovation, and I am thrilled to be here with you all today. I'm joining from Malawi in Southern Africa, and the weather is perfect. It's 79 degrees Fahrenheit, which I think is about 23 Celsius. Let me check, make sure I got my Celsius right. But really happy to have everyone here. I'll have to check my Celsius later. Somebody else knows what 79 Fahrenheit is. Welcome, Julius. You're late in the evening, so happy to thank you for staying on after dinner. Welcome, Joseph. It's cold in South Africa. Okay, so I hope you're inside and staying cozy. Perfect weather in Lagos. Love to hear it. Really happy to have friendly weather. That sounds nice. I want to be somewhere that has friendly weather. Really excited. I'm very excited actually for this Career Corner. Put together some really great resources, and I appreciate everyone making the time to join us. So I will go ahead and share my screen, and everyone's going to get this recording, so they will see that when it comes up. If you want to let me know in the chat, can you see my screen? Give me a thumbs up or yes. Oh, it's got cold in Kenya. Welcome, Paul. All right, I'm glad you can see my screen. Thank you. So we are here today for the Nexford Career Corner. A few housekeeping things. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please use the Q&A because the chat can get a little busy, and we'll use that for more connecting with one another, but we will keep the Q&A in one space so that we can find those questions at the end of the presentation. You will get a copy of this recording. You're going to get a copy of the presentation and links to all the resources that I mentioned throughout, so don't worry, you will be getting a copy of all of that throughout. And welcome to those who are joining just now. So here is a brief agenda so that you can know where we are now and where we're going throughout. So I'll do some brief introductions. We're going to talk about career materials today. So that's what our Nexford Career Corner is focused on. We're going to talk about CVs and resumes, cover letters, and LinkedIn profiles, and then we'll leave time at the end for Q&A. So if that's what those are things that you're interested in, you've come to the right place. Hi again, my name is Jennifer Bhangra, and I am Nexford's Director of Career Innovation. And what I care about deeply is helping prepare our learners and alumni for career success. So I want to make sure that you're not only, advancing your career from our amazing content and curriculum, but that you're also feeling equipped with the tools and skills you need to move forward with your career, on the more practical job search strategies, your career materials. My background is in online higher education and learning, career development, and workforce success. So really delighted to be here with you all today. Again, if you're just joining and you have questions throughout, please use that Q&A box at the bottom of the screen so we can keep all of those questions in one place. Before we jump in, I'd love to know, when you're preparing your career materials, that could be your CV, your resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, something else, what is hardest? What do you find that's hardest? And let me know in the chat. I'm going to open up the chat so I can keep an eye here on that. And thank you to everyone who's introducing yourselves. I'm really delighted to have you here. So maybe it's the knowing where to start. Maybe it's your formatting, the content itself, or maybe it's something else. And if so, we'd love to know. So Lucille says the content's hardest for her. Actually knowing, what content to put in. And this is great because I want to make sure that what I'm sharing during our presentation is going to be relevant for what you need. Welcome Sunday, John. That writing a cover letter can be nerve-wracking, absolutely. And don't worry, by the end of this session, I hope you won't find that writing a cover letter is nerve-wracking. Okay, so the actual content. This is great. All right, I'm going to make sure to give you some good tips and tricks along the way. Thank you to everyone for sharing, and you can please keep sharing in the chat if you'd like. So first, we're going to go ahead and move right into our CVs. So CVs, whatever word you're using, CVs, resumes, typically a CV refers to the exhaustive, outlining of your career. So it could be many pages long, oftentimes used in academia, where you are listing every single position you've ever had, all of your responsibilities. And then you have resumes, which are typically 1 to 2 pages. I'm going to use the resume format because that's typically what can be accepted. However, if you need specific, more of a drill down into CV guidance, I can also share some resources for that later. So here I'm sharing with you a template, a screen grab of a template for a resume, and you will be getting a copy of this as a link. So you're going to have your own resume template for those who are joining us live or who registered. You'll get a link to this as a Word doc. I'd love to know in the chat, what jumps out to you about this overall, this screenshot of a resume? What do you see, or what don't you see? I'll just go ahead and point out some things as people are thinking about. So Hafsat, thank you so much. So Hafsat says that it's simple. There's no profile picture, Julia says. Those are actually our two main things. Now, I understand, okay, there's a lot of details, Paul says. Something that when we're talking about CVs and resumes, and I have people joining you, we have people in the Philippines, South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria. You are going to know your local context best, right? You're going to know what is acceptable when you're applying for jobs and what information is appropriate to include and what information maybe isn't appropriate. And if you don't know, you're going to want to Google, or ask somebody who works in an HR space, is this appropriate to include? So I would recommend not including a photo. And yet I also know that is that can be more of an American preference, because in some countries and workspaces, it is appropriate to include. But I typically think that now with LinkedIn and being able to include a LinkedIn URL in your resume, you can leave off a photo. What I like about this resume is that it is simple. You do not want to overwhelm somebody who's reviewing your career materials with too much information. Now, I see Nina sharing, some companies want more details about your job duties. And absolutely, this is just, you'll absolutely include more information, and I'll share ways that you can do that shortly. But you want to be able to give space for somebody to scan this information and not feel like, where am I looking? Where do I go next? You're helping guide the reader with these different sections, so I can quickly jump from the name to the professional experience, to the education, to skills and additional information. You don't want to make somebody, I always liken the way that we prepare our career materials to how you host somebody in your home. So think about when somebody comes over, what you do. Maybe you clean the house before they come. You want to clear away the clutter. It depends on who's coming over. If it's your best friend, you probably leave everything out, right? But you want to make a good first impression. And the way that we do that oftentimes is by cleaning up. Think about applying those same principles to your CV and your resume. Clean out things that are not necessary and leave the essential information. I also recommend, and again, this is something that you're going to need to think about your local context for, but only including your city, state, country on your CV. because oftentimes when you're applying for a role, you'll have to enter in your address so that they have that for their records. But think about it. If oftentimes your CV, if you become a candidate, it's going to get emailed to the hiring manager team. It's going to get forwarded to somebody else. That's your personal home address that's getting sent to a lot of people. And so you just want to be conscious of, what kind of information that you're including on a CV or resume, and that you kind of lose control of who it's going to once you submit it into an applicant tracking system or into a space. So I'm now going to go through each section here and just make some key comments about the sections to keep in mind. Please, though, I'm going to try and keep an eye on the Q&A, but I think I'll have to do the Q&A all together at the end just so I can keep an eye on time. So this first section, and again, you'll be getting a copy of this in the follow-up, is your header, or that top section. So you have your name that's in bold. If you've already received your MBA, or if you're, then you'll include comma, your credentials, MBA, city, state, your email, your phone number, and potentially a link to your LinkedIn URL. And then here also is that summary section. And I'm including in the template that we share a link to some other templates that you can use, because oftentimes it can be hard to write that professional summary or objective statement if you choose to include it. Some key points that I see oftentimes with resumes and again with CVs. Now, again, this might be obvious to some people, but it's not obvious to everybody. Your email, here I have, your email at email.com. Sometimes I'll see emails that maybe it was the first email this person ever used. And so it's like their favorite band name or their favorite TV show, biggest fan, something show. You really want to make sure that you're using a professional email. This is the first impression that you're giving to somebody. So try and use your name at, a Gmail, something that's going to be a typical, accepted email browser, .com, and just be thoughtful about what you're including as your email. For your LinkedIn URL, I'm going to show you how you can customize your URL. Sometimes I see people who include the URL and it's like linkedin.com/in Jennifer Bongora 56XYZQ1234. It has all those like numbers at the end. I'm going to show you how you can customize your URL, because you don't want to include that all those numbers. You're able to actually change the URL for your LinkedIn. So this is that top section. For this objective statement, what I'm going to encourage people to do is you'll have a standard one. And this is, again, for all of your career materials, you want to have, your baseline. For your resume and cover letter, you're going to be tweaking it for each role that you're submitting your materials for. For your LinkedIn, you're going to have something that's a little more static. You're obviously not going to change that for every application, because you probably are applying to lots of jobs at one time. You'll have a standard, kind of mother resume template. But I want you to really, again, when you're creating these objective statements, or if you choose to include it again, try not to make it a collection of buzzwords. So when I say that, I mean somebody who writes, ambitious leader with attention to detail and experience communicating. Things that actually don't mean much, because I'm just saying words. You really want to get more specifics where you're using metrics, you're talking about actual work experience that you've had, or, if you haven't had a lot of formal work experience, maybe project-based learning that you can integrate throughout. So next we have the professional experience section. So with a resume, it is reverse chronological, what that means is that you put your most recent professional experience first, and then so like you would put your current job and then you put your previous job below that, and so on and so forth. I have seen people put it the other way where it's chronological. I don't recommend that, because it can give a wrong impression of that you don't have any recent work experience. So there's reverse chronological. For people who have less professional experience, you might consider using more of a format, or excuse me, like a content blocking approach. So I have the name of this section, professional experience, but if you're applying to digital marketing positions, you might have maybe 2 or 3 sections that have digital marketing experience, product management experience, and instead of it being more traditionally reverse chronological, you're focusing actually on your skills-based experience. And so you could include, instead of it just being formal career positions, you could include projects that you've worked on that also reflect the skills that you're trying to highlight for a different role. So here you can see that you have the company name, city, state, country. You could indicate that it's remote if it's a remote role, and then your job title. And then here is just a basic recommendation for how to format your bullets. You use a success verb, and when I share a link out to this presentation, we have verbs that you can use, because oftentimes that can be hard to think about, like which ones to use to vary it up. A noun, a metric, and then an outcome. So, built, and then what did you build? A digital platform to serve, over 10,000 learners to successfully complete digital marketing course. So you want to think the so what every time you write a bullet. And again, it takes time. I'm not going to lie to you and say that building out a quality CV is easy. But again, once you do that initial creation, you're able to, it's not going to take so long every time updating it. But be really thoughtful. And every time you make a bullet, I want you to ask yourself, so what? If somebody's reading that bullet and they're going to say, so what? If you're missing that outcome or the reason why that, the action that you took was relevant, someone's not going to understand the connection to the job that you're applying for. And as a job applicant, it's your job to help the reviewer connect the dots. Another way that you can think about how to build out these different bullet points is to collect maybe 5 or so different job descriptions that you've seen that you've been excited about, and think about how can I not copy and paste that bullet in the job description, but adapt it. And if you've had a similar experience, use the language that they're using in the job description. And then you can see on the right-hand side here, I have the X's that indicate the dates. What I'm going to highlight at the end as a tip, what I want to encourage here is consistency. Okay, so again, in the template that you'll receive, you can copy and paste these different sections, but you see that, whatever you choose, some people put the job title first and then the company beneath. That's fine. There's not, a standard that's you have to do, but whatever you choose to do it throughout your document, right? So if you're putting company and then location and then your job title for the first role, make sure you're doing it for the second role. Again, for some of you, you might be saying, of course, Jennifer, but I've seen a lot of resumes and a lot of CVs, and it's not the consistency of the formats oftentimes gets a little sloppy as the document goes through. So just be aware of that. So next, you have your education section. So I've put in here, if you're doing your MBA, make sure here, I'm going to see this because again, I've seen this on a lot of resumes. Be careful about how you spell out the degree that you've received. So some people write master's, no apostrophe, master's with an apostrophe. Doing your MBA, it's a Master of Business Administration. You have your university name and then your year that you've graduated. You can include the month as well if you like. Some people also, again, this is going to be dependent on your individual situation where you're applying. Some people choose to remove the years of graduation to avoid age discrimination, but some people, it's required that you include it. So just be aware of what's appropriate where you are. And if you don't know, ask a few other people around you what they think. Yes, so this is also a place, if you want to include a bullet point or two, maybe you received an award during your studies, or you had a thesis that you want to make sure you highlight, or a capstone project, you can include that as a bullet point below the education. Just don't make it too crowded, because again, this is just to land you the interview, right? You want someone to be able to scan this and understand your core competencies and how they align with that position. So make sure that all the things that you're putting into your CV or resume are answering that question for somebody. And then I have skills and additional information. So this one, and again, you might choose to move different sections to, throughout. Typically, the professional experience is what stays in the middle. But when I see job descriptions, use the job description as your guide. So if they have in the requirements certain skills that are absolutely required and not, a preferred qualification, maybe you want to move that to the top so they know you have that skill. And you might consider, instead of listing them on a line here, grouping them by skill type. So you might have, your technical skills, you might have language skills, you might have coding, whatever it is, and then you list out the different languages, either like actual spoken languages, or if it's a more technical language like SQL, Python, and so on. So there's different ways here. You can also add an additional section with your volunteer experience or community engagement. I might get this question of like including hobbies or interests, and I think they can be interesting. However, what I want you to keep in mind is, what is the value add when you include those hobbies? So I'll often see traveling, photography, watching movies. I think those are great hobbies. And what does it tell me about that is unique about you? I'm being a little bit trying to be funny here. It's more unique if you said, like, I don't travel, I don't like traveling, I don't like movies, and I don't like eating out at restaurants. To me, that's more unique than saying those other hobbies. So you might consider, I've seen some people, add a little flavor to your hobbies. So instead of saying, I like watching movies, you could consider, I've watched every horror movie produced since 2015. Or how can you add an element that's a little bit more unique? I love trying Asian restaurants. Or again, think about how you can add a little bit of personalization if you choose to include your hobbies and interests. It is optional. I don't necessarily encourage folks to do it, but some people want to. So I just want to put that out there. In the follow-up, I'm going to include, you can see that these are hyperlinked. These are some these resources that you can access on your own. So we have some free resume templates that Eugene Hayden has created, and those he has them, with guidance by different roles and functions that you can have. JobScan is a fabulous tool that you can upload a copy of your resume, and then you upload the job description, and it scans it for you to show, what you're missing in your CV or resume that is in the job description. Because oftentimes people say, well, I don't know what to include, the content, like I was hearing in the chat there earlier, of that the content can be really difficult. And really, your job description or the company page is going to be the place that you want to go to that has all the information that you need. You don't have to create it. When they say they're looking for XYZ in a job description, you better make sure that you have XYZ in your resume somewhere. And JobScan does that for you. And then for the verbs, I have a link here to a blog post that has 185 action verbs that will impress hiring managers. And they, again, those are blocked out by different the types of work that you could be doing. So I'll highly recommend that you check that out. And then here I saw this morning on Twitter, 10 sites to review or get your resume and CV for free. So if you want to check those out, you can do that as well. Pause here and see what we have. Okay, great. So Joseph asked, since this question is directly relevant for our CVs and resumes. So we have, what if you're still studying at university? How do you state that on your resume? Very, very good question. And I will go back. I couple slides just to the education section. So where you see this year here, you would write expected. So instead of saying May 2022, I would write expected December 2022. That's how I would convey that on your resume. Very good question, and thank you so much for asking. So yes, I'm sorry. Please do keep the questions in the Q&A just so I can keep an eye on them. And so we have a question around presenting yourself for MBA roles because you want to apply for business analyst, business development, or business operations, but I've never accepted even when the description does fit what I have. What could go wrong? And again, I would just encourage you to take a look at your materials and ensure that what's in that job description, you are really strongly conveying how you have that experience in your resume. And while this career corner is focused on career materials, there is a lot more that goes into your job search than just your materials. There's going to be networking, there's going to be informational interviews, research. So there's a lot more elements that you might need, that you might be missing dots. So thank you for that question though. So cover letters. Now, I can't hear anybody because the volume is not on, but if it were me, I would be groaning right now because I know cover letters trip a lot of people up, and there's maybe three things that happen usually with cover letters. One, people just don't do it. You just say, oh, it's optional. I'm not submitting. Two, you are going to just send the same cover letter for every role, and maybe you change the dear, person's name and you leave the same content within. Or three, you do a really thoughtful job and you take the time to have one initial cover letter that you tweak and adapt per role. Of those three, I am going to recommend you go with the third option, because while you, and this is where something I say, career advice is an art, not a science. So people will see on LinkedIn, or maybe your friends or whomever, they're going to say, oh, nobody reads cover letters. And somebody else is going to say, everybody reads cover letters. You must have them. You're going to find some people that really like them and others that don't. But what I would recommend is that if there's an option to submit a cover letter with your application, that you take advantage of that opportunity, because it's another chance to convey who you are. Again, when you're submitting an application, all the information that the person on the other side has is what you're sharing with them, right? So if you don't share it, they don't know it's happened. And I think that can be really frustrating for a lot of job seekers, because you might feel, just like Sana shared, I have everything it takes for this job. Why am I not getting picked? And you've got to be the one that's creating the story and the narrative for other people to know. So I'd love to know in the chat, what do you notice about this cover letter? And maybe it's in relation to the resume I shared before, or this is not a full cover letter. Obviously, I just have like the top section, but does anything jump out at anybody? Now, this is me being grateful to have the opportunity to connect with people. So Benjamin says the header. Now, what I'm excited about you noticing that, Benjamin, is that this is something, again, I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of career materials submitted from learners in my career as a career coach and working in career services. Maybe I could count on one, if not maybe two hands, the amount of times when I see a resume and a cover letter come through and they have the same header, the format looks the same, they're saved as a PDF because formatting changes. I always recommend saving as a PDF. The first thing that should jump out to you here is, I think what maybe hopefully Benjamin is noticing, this header is the same as the resume. When you're submitting your materials, you want to showcase to people, I have attention to detail. That's something I care about, because there's few jobs that you could apply to where people don't care about that. People care about you caring about the details and how things look. And it just gives the appearance that you're somebody who's put together And it's very easy to do, to use your same header and format from your resume, use it on your cover letter, because when you submit it, it's like, wow, this looks like a clean, put together series of documents. I can tell there's cohesion. The person took the time to be thoughtful about the aesthetics, because while content can be the hardest part of actually, updating our career materials, we also should care about the format, because that's a representation. It's like when you go to a job interview and you think about what you wear. Now, whether or not, appearances should or shouldn't be part of, how somebody judges a candidate, we do want to at least show up clean, put together. We don't need to be wearing a formal outfit, but think about that. That's applying those same, how you dress for a job interview, to your career materials. So here, I'll just point out again, thank you. We have the same header as your resume. Make sure that it's consistent, whatever it is. You have the date, you have the hiring manager first name, hiring manager title, the company name, city, state, country. You're putting the job position in there, RE regarding, but just you can put the abbreviation RE, digital marketing analyst, digital marketing executive. Dear, and then use the name. Don't say sir or madam. With LinkedIn today, there's no excuse and websites to not be able to find the name, at least, of the head of human resources. If you're looking at me right now, maybe, or just listening and saying, Jennifer, but I can't find the name of every job I'm applying to. I would like to challenge you to try and Google, company name, head of human resources. Something should come up, because even if you can't find the specific hiring manager's name, you should be able to find somebody in human resources. And while this cover letter might not land on their computer or their desk, it's going to, again, show another level of detail that you've taken the time to do your research and find out more about the company. And then I'm going to share now just some sections of what you can include. I have links here to some templates that you can adapt for your own purposes that I just would recommend you checking out on your own time, because we only have a limited amount of time and I want to make sure we get through everything. So what to include in the body of your cover letter? So I have 3 S's about: stories, strengths, and success. Your resume is where you're giving a high-level overview, again, of the work that you've done, the outcomes that you've had, metrics, really specific information that someone can scan at a glance and understand how your experience aligns with this job description. The cover letter is an opportunity for you to give a little bit more of an insight and anecdotes to maybe the key 1 or 2 projects that you've worked on. So maybe in one of your bullets, you highlight something that you're really proud of. And then in the cover letter, you're able to expand a little bit more and give a little more detail about what that experience involved. Again, you can have a core cover letter, because your core stories, strengths, and successes are not going to change from job to job, right? But what you want to highlight out of them will, depending on whether you're applying, again, to maybe an analyst or an operations role. I would encourage you, again, keep that job description open if you're able to print it, or maybe on your computer, copy and paste into a Word doc or a Google Doc, and highlight the keywords that are jumping out at you. I'm going to share a tool as well on Teal. It's called TEAL, and they do that for you. So it's a free tool. You put a link to the job description, and it highlights what in that job description are the key elements and skills that you should be highlighting. If you're wondering, like, what do I include? That's what you should be including in your cover letter. Okay, now we're going to talk about LinkedIn profiles. So remember, we started off, we did some introductions. Thank you to everyone again for sharing where you're based, how the weather is. We talked about CVs and resumes. We moved into cover letters. Now we have our last section, which is on the LinkedIn profile. So here, I've listed here on the screen some core areas to consider: your profile picture, your banner or cover photo, that LinkedIn URL, your headline, the about section, your experience, and the skills. There are other elements to a LinkedIn profile that you can include, but these are the core ones that you want to consider. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And I appreciate, so I'm just seeing in the chat that Chima is saying that one should be able to know a bit about the company he or she is applying for. And absolutely, I mean, what's going to set you apart in your job search is going a little bit above and beyond. You really don't even have to go that much, but take the time, read through the company site, read the mission. And when in that cover letter, go ahead and share it expressly. I loved reading about your mission to build socioeconomic mobility through education, which is what our mission here is at Nexford. Share why that's important to you. That's important to me because use their company website as your guiding star throughout the application process. Wow, we have so many great questions coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my own personal LinkedIn. Next time I'm going to ask somebody else to get vulnerable here and share your own. Just joking. I won't put someone on the spot unless you want to. So here I have, can you see my LinkedIn screen? May I just get a yes if you can see my LinkedIn? Okay, great. You can see my LinkedIn profile. So what I'm going to put here in the chat, and I really highly recommend everyone check out this tool, tlhq.com. There, so Utube cannot see my screen. I think it's all right though. You should be seeing my LinkedIn profile with a picture of my face. And okay, great. So I just shared a link for Teal, and they have this fabulous Chrome extension that you can add in to do an instant review of your LinkedIn profile. Because while I would love to do individual LinkedIn profile reviews for everyone, there's over 120 people just on this call, and that's just our Nexford community. I don't have the time. However, I have never seen a better tool than this, and it's free. And what I'm just going to briefly show you is how it works. So I'll close it, but this is my LinkedIn profile. You add the Chrome extension, and there's this little green button at the bottom. What you do is when you open up your LinkedIn profile, it's doing an automatic review. Again, here are these main sections. So I click on my profile picture, and there is detailed advice on how you can improve that specific section of your LinkedIn profile. So here, there's like a few key points to consider. The banner, this is a cover photo, also known as, so you can Google free cover photos to include on LinkedIn. You can make your own on Canva. This is not a make or break element of your LinkedIn profile. Again, it's just an element of your professional brand that you want to consider, and it's great to include. And again, here are some tips and tricks to keep in mind. Again, look at this. Create your own banner by using one of the LinkedIn templates on Canva, and there's a link to it. Your LinkedIn URL. So they're pulling out what my URL here is, and then they include step-by-step guidance on how you can edit yours. Because you can see mine, I don't have any numbers, I don't have any letters after my name. That's because I've gone in and I edited it. So there's instructions here for how to do that yourself. If you have shared your LinkedIn URL on existing applications, and maybe you already used your original one that has all the letters and numbers, I believe that link doesn't stay live. So that's just something to consider. If you've already done it, don't sweat it. But you might wait, a month or so, because if people are going to click on that, they might get a 404 message. So you just want to be aware of that. Here, again, there's guidance on what to include. Automatically on LinkedIn, it's going to include your first role. So if you are a real estate developer at XYZ company, that's going to be what your headline is. And that is great if you want to give the real estate, I will say, of your headline away. So for people who are not in an active job search, I think it's great to include your company name. It's good for the company, it's good for you. If associating with, a respected company, you might also consider focusing on the 3 to 5 keywords that you want people to think about when they think of you. And it's hard for somebody else to answer that, but you can do a brainstorming session, sit down, write down, what do I want people to think about? Maybe even look at your Nexford courses, look at the key skills that are coming out from your specialization or your coursework. So it might be digital marketing, it could be AI, it could be sustainability. Think about what that is and include that in your headline, because oftentimes when people are scanning through on LinkedIn, if they're doing it on mobile, which most people are probably, they're only seeing your profile picture. If you include that to be public, and your headline. So it's really important real estate. And again, it can project who you want to be. So maybe you're not a digital marketing expert yet, but that's what you want people to start associating with you. So be thoughtful about that. If you're feeling stuck, brainstorm a few ideas and then reach out to 3 to 5 classmates or friends, family, and say, I'm developing my LinkedIn profile. I would love your input. What are 3 to 5 words that you think of when you think about me? And kind of crowdsource the idea as well. Or again, go back to that job description. What are keywords that you're seeing in the job description that you feel drawn to? And you might consider using those. Another thing I get a lot with people is they get overwhelmed. They say, I don't know what to include. So they just don't include anything. That's not what I would recommend doing. It's really a missed opportunity. And also, you can update your LinkedIn profile whenever. It's not permanent. So you give yourself the space and opportunity to, tweak it along the way. It's unlikely people are going to notice, oh, that person's changing it. Now don't change it like every week or, every month, maybe on a quarterly or every, 6 months basis. But yeah, it's not permanent. So here, this one is showing, it's giving me 2 red exclamation points for my about and my experience. So let's see what it's saying. It says here it gets again, this is such a great tool. Add information to your about section that best shows your experience, skills, and accomplishments. And here they're giving you this blurb builder. If you click on it, it's very cool. So I'd recommend using that. And then they have additional guidance here in this section. And so this is the about section. If you scroll down a bit here, this section, I do recommend writing it in the first person so that it feels a little bit more informal, like you're speaking to the person who's talking to you. When you write in third person, so first person is I'm saying I am this. Third person would be Jennifer is a. So that can feel a little bit more distant. I do recommend keeping it in the first person so it's a little bit more conversational. And then we have the experience section. So there's some guidance here. And they're recommending that I add a little bit more content for my most recent position. So you can choose to include the bullet points from your resume, or you can give a little bit more narrative and share a favorite story or the project that you worked on. I've chosen to include links to the websites, but that's a personal choice. And then finally, the skills section. So if you scroll down here, we have our education filled in. So that's good. What I want to highlight, adding Nexford into your education section, it happens for all people. You'll notice that all of my avatars, which this is what an avatar is, this little logo, these are the official avatars and logos. Sometimes on LinkedIn, if you type it out too quickly, you get that little grayed out kind of castle looking thing. I encourage you, give it a little time to show up so that if you just wait a moment or make sure you spelled it correctly, then the official avatar should show up. So I've noticed that a lot on the LinkedIn alumni group for Nexford. I'll ask people to make sure that they've included the official page. So that it's just another layer of professionalism that's coming through on your LinkedIn profile. And BC, you will get a copy of this recording. So the LinkedIn review, that's going to come from this website, tealhq.com. You have to click in. It's going to take a little bit of clicking around to get to the Chrome extension and the LinkedIn review. But I'll try and find a resource that we can link in the follow-up so you can make sure to access that. Yes, so I'll go ahead and stop sharing there because I want to be mindful of time, and I know we have a few more questions to get to. Thank you for everyone's engagement and your great questions. I really appreciate it. It's such a treat being able to connect with you for these Career Corner sessions. And I love your comment, Emmanuel. Thank you. We are trying to be a next gen university. So thank you for making us feel seen and heard. So we have talked about CVs, we've talked about cover letters, we've just done I've been vulnerable and shared my own LinkedIn profile with you, which again, goes to show we all have areas. Here are my top tips that I want you to take away from the session. Pay attention to the details. They matter. They are reflecting you as an employee and as a professional. Spelling, typos, those are things that when you're working in Microsoft Word or Google, turn on that spell check. We all need it. Ask somebody to review your resume, that initial one before you start sharing it. When people review your materials, they notice that, because again, that's a reflection of what kind of employee you're going to be. Be consistent. If you use one job title in your resume or CV, use the same job title in your LinkedIn. If you refer to your company as one way here, make sure you're using it there. Try inconsistency. Use the official logos on all of your on your profiles and pages. Again, I've seen it on so many documents where people say I was a digital analyst, and then they will say I'm digital marketing, and then it's like, is it the same job? It just causes an unnecessary confusion. And you want, when someone reviews your materials, to have as seamless of an experience as possible. You don't want them to be thinking, that's odd, it doesn't match up. You want them to be focusing on your skills and capabilities. And then finally, update your materials for each application. Of course, your LinkedIn profile, you're going to set that and maybe update it on a quarterly basis. But for your resumes and CVs and cover letters, please don't use the same one. People notice. All it's going to take is tweaking it for a few of the keywords that might be different based on the language that they use. I love it when I see people who, again, read that mission or values statement. Those are keywords that company has spent a lot of time developing. And it's a very easy way for you to adapt your materials to show that you have read through and you understand how their mission and values align with your own mission, your own values, right? So here I'm going to link some resources for your resume, your CV, LinkedIn profile, and your cover letter. So you have a link to that. So everyone who is attending live or who registered will have access to those. And I'll say thank you so much for your time. I am going to check out the Q&A. We have a lot of questions that have come in. We only have time for a few, so I will do my best to answer some right now in a rapid fire way. I'll go ahead and stop sharing. But I am so glad this was insightful, Orlando. Joshua, we will get a link by email. Wow, you all are so kind. Very much appreciate your encouragement. And honestly, your feedback really matters to us. And I hope you feel that, because this session was based on our last Career Corner, where people said, I want more on the career materials. We are building a Nexford exclusive career course where this information is going to live. You'll also get the recording and links to the different templates I referenced. So really appreciate the kind words and encouragement there, because we want to make sure that, again, you're getting the skills and tools that you need to advance in your career. So let me see here. So Julius is asking a great question. What content should career changers and shifters emphasize in their resumes? For instance, an employee has more than 10 years of experience in operations, but no years of relevant working experience in technology, and they're graduating with an MBA in the AI specialization. This happens a lot. In fact, I was speaking with someone this week. they have been doing a certain career for 15 years, and they actually want to pivot and move away from that. And so they want to minimize a little bit their experience because they don't want to get hired for that same role again. And actually, I know that's why a lot of you are pursuing your MBA, is because you're preparing yourself for that pivot and shift. So in that instance, I would recommend using the more content focused, and I'm not using the right word, but I'm sorry, I can't remember now the word it is, but on your CV, and thinking about your transferable skills. So with operations, you might put, make the header operations experience. And you could use that same formatting where it's your job title, company, years, and bullets. And then you're really focusing on what you did. And again, maybe this is coming in the form of a project. Maybe it's a volunteer experience that you can frame as more of an operations experience. That's what I would encourage you to do, though, is to get a little bit more creative and think about, surely there is something that you have done that's touched on operations, but it might not be in your formal work experience. It could have come through a project through your MBA, or it could have come through your community engagement. And I think we answered Sana's question, so thank you for that. So we have a question about, if there's no name indicated for the hiring manager, how do we start the cover letter? And again, I would recommend finding the chief people officer or the chief human resources officer and just addressing it to them. If you can't find that, address it to the CEO. If you're applying to, I would say, 99% of companies, there's at least a CEO. And again, that's just a level of personalization that is showing that you are submitting this for that specific company, and that you've got, even just, how long does it take you to Google CEO of a company name? 30 seconds. You're going above and beyond what other people are doing who are writing, "Dear Sir, Madam." You're showing me that you are really excited. It's just a way of showing that you're excited about a different role. And everyone will be getting a copy of this recording, so don't worry about that. So if you have two current job roles, is it advisable to put them both as current positions? Absolutely. You maybe just want to put the one that you is more relevant if you're applying for another role first, so you can think about that order and what's going to be more relevant. But on LinkedIn, as you can see, like you can absolutely have concurrent roles, and now it's actually a lot easier on LinkedIn to shift the order. So you can, before, LinkedIn only let you have your positions be in chronological order. Now they actually let you drag and shift, which is great. And so we have another question about the hiring manager. Again, I would recommend using somebody from the organization's name. So this question is about looking for remote MBA jobs, and that's going to be an upcoming Career Corner session focused specifically on targeting remote work. So that is coming soon, and thank you for the question. So we have a question about, like, what about if I am someone who's starting, I have no work experience? And that is where you are going to want to put your education first. Okay, so then that's showing that you're pursuing education. You're going to fill that out a little bit more with a few bullet points of different projects you've worked on. And then if you don't have any volunteer experience, I would encourage you to go ahead and find something that you can volunteer for in your community, so you can start adding in volunteer roles and then framing that as more of your professional experience. So yeah, so that would be a recommendation, but I'll make a note of that too for how to include that. Thank you for that question. I'm not sure what this question is about. LinkedIn profile. Someone says, can we do this as often as possible? Yes, I'm exploring and seeing if it's realistic, if we can have more office hours like we have with our writing coach. So I'm hoping that we can do that. That would be great. So that's, I think, let's see. So someone else says, as someone who has multiple jobs at once, how do you go about that on LinkedIn, since every gig or job adds to your skills? So what you might consider is that if you're a freelancer, this takes a little more effort, but you can create your own LinkedIn page. And it might be, so mine, I have my own, it's Jennifer Bongora Productions. So maybe yours is Damilola Services, Damilola Productions. And you can include your gig work, and you can include it as, you know, what those different contracts and work is. Or if they're for official, like if you're doing freelance for a company, you might want to associate yourself with that company and include that as a specific role. So it's really just going to depend, you know, if we're talking 5, 10, if it's getting more than 5, then you're probably going to want to consolidate them into your own consultancy, essentially. So then, yeah, wow, we have so many good questions. I'm going to take a screen grab here so that I can make sure to check these out soon and include them for a future session. But I want to say thank you to everybody who joined. Emmanuel sharing his personal page, and if everyone is not already following Emmanuel, please do, because we have an expert in the room. Really excited to have you as part of our Nexford community, Emmanuel, and I hope everyone takes advantage of the great insights that you share on LinkedIn. I know I love following them myself. So thank you to everyone who made the time to join. Again, I'm Jennifer Bongora, your Director of Career Innovation at Nexford University. We are so delighted that you made the time to join us today, and we're looking forward to having you join again next month. So take care, and we'll be in touch soon with the recording and all the references and resources that we referenced.